It is the Boneyard Podcast, and it is our final one of the season. And Coach Campbell here with me, Matt Mosley. Coach, we've had so much fun doing these all year long, and I feel like we need a good off-season one, like coming off the spring game. You know, we may have to revisit this, but we thank everybody who said such kind things and supported us both financially and otherwise, and just mainly for folks that take the time to watch this. We start. We all have heavy hearts because the voice of Lake Highlands, Bob Johnston, passed away, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard that news. It was really tough news to hear. Bob had to go be in the hospital, but he'd gotten out of the hospital, was able to do the playoff game, and Bob passed away here in the last couple of weeks. I did want to pass along, by the way, we do have news on the services. It will be December 14th, Saturday, December 14th at 2 o'clock at Lake Highlands United Methodist Church. There's so many of you who've known Bob over the years and have heard him and what we think of Jaree right now, and think of the boys, Robert and Brent, and then all the folks who worked with Bob over the years, Steve Brooks and Doug Williams up in the press box, who all the guys at the Exchange Club who love Bob. That's who I started hearing from when that news went out, and it was jolting to all of us. And Bob's lived a long, great, colorful, wonderful life, but we're still never ready to lose these folks, especially someone that meant so much to us in the community. So, Coach, you've seen sort of the outpouring. You hear him when you're down on the sideline. You know how much he loved it, both baseball, football, anything he could lend his voice to, he would. JV, and he gave it everything he had, no matter sub-varsity sports. He loved being on the mic, but mainly just loved the kids and interacting with the coaches and the players over the years.
Yeah, when I came here in 2010 and first met Bob, and what he meant to the community, man, it's hard to put into words. Obviously, he had an iconic voice, and his little intro, welcome to the Boneyard, has become famous. And man, with heavy hearts, we talk about this now. We're sure going to miss him, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. In the days and weeks and months to come, we want to celebrate what he meant to not only our football program, but to the community and all the sports that he was a part of. I think one thing I started thinking about, just little things, when I talked to Steve Brooks earlier during the Thanksgiving holiday, and just kind of going back and remembering, Bob took his job very, very seriously. He would call me, I would email him rosters, and he would check pronunciations, and he really, really wanted to give the kids their due diligence, and it was just fun to kind of be a part of it.
Yeah, and just a very familiar voice. And he took over in 1995 Wildcats football from a guy named Bill Blades, who's another legendary member of the community, and we lost Bill here in the past couple of years, and that was a really tough loss for the community, and then really Dallas as a whole for the way Bill served. But Bob, again, thinking about Jaree and the whole family and everybody connected to Bob. But he had a lot of friends, and always, you and I both were asked to speak to the Exchange Club from time to time, and there he was. He'd always be right there, and always so supportive, and a great guy. And that's huge. It's just, we're going to miss him so much. So I think a lot of folks will want to celebrate his life, and again, that can happen on the 14th, Saturday the 14th, and that is at 2 o'clock over at Lake Highlands United Methodist Church, right here in the community. And by the way, his record over the years, I mean, the Wildcats won about 70% of district games that he was calling. And so again, it was great to have him up there. I always laughed because he was he would be concerned about those kids on the railings. I think he wanted everybody to be able to see the game, and so he'd be asking folks to get off those railings down there, so everybody could have the proper view. And maybe because he, from where he needed to be able to see everybody as well. But great group that we have. You can't replace a guy like that who has that much invested in the community. And there will be another voice, but we'll never replace Bob Johnston. All right, Corey, this was the game, and of course that puts everything in perspective. But the game against Coppell, let's look back at it for a minute. We want to look ahead, and you got a lot of excitement moving forward. You played a lot of young players, so I think you've got a lot to be excited about this season. But that game in particular, y'all took a little time to. We had the break, and now we've come back from it. Now that you've had time, first of all, when it doesn't end the way you want it, and a game goes like that, do you go and watch the film? Do you need to take a break from it? How do you handle those kind of the end of the season? Because it's always, unless you win it, even if you win the state title, it ends, right? But it's always an abrupt ending when you go out in the playoffs, even after a great season like this. What's your process for kind of starting to turn the page?
Yeah, we met as a staff when we got back briefly Friday night, and the coach in me always wants to turn the tape on and just watch it. And so I did that briefly Friday night before leaving here. And my son was riding home with me in the car, and he was sad that we lost, but he's like, "Oh, Dad, you're going to be home for a little bit now,"
Yeah.
And that kind of puts things in perspective. So many people, including our players, our coaches, parents, community members, have invested so much, and I want to thank everyone, for that. And as you have a chance to spend the Thanksgiving break with your family and stuff like that, coming back, and we'll have to turn the page, but I want to make sure that we recognize people that have spent so much time and invested so much into our program. And I told the kids Friday night, there's not a whole lot you can say on Friday night. There's going to be one team left in this deal, but we talked to the staff a little bit this morning, and I think the 8 teams that are left, I think 3 of them are ranked nationally in the top 10. And so you've got Allen playing, I believe, Duncanville. Or no, maybe Allen's playing North Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
Duncanville is playing Bridgeland. You've got the Austin Westlake and Lake Travis playing each other, and then North Shore and Atascocita. So you're talking about some of the best high school football in the country. And be fun to watch and see how that plays out. But I'm so proud of our team and our staff to be right there. Involved in the final 30 teams in the state of Texas is something to be proud of.
All right. It was, I mean, the spotless district record, so many great moments. Just to look back a little bit at that game, you wanted this to be a ball control, long drives, eat away at them. And with those short passes, the screen passes, I would say that first drive, you were right on schedule. And of course, they came back and made it 7-7, but you had to be early on feeling pretty good about the way the team was playing, the way you were functioning on offense. What was your kind of thought process early in that game? Because that was a great opening drive.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, we felt like we wanted to try and keep the ball away from them as much as possible. Obviously, Edwards, the quarterback, that's the Baylor commit. It was really special all season. They came in, 12-0, undefeated, and ranked in the state in the top 10. And so that was kind of our purpose, to try and keep him off the field and limit some of those explosive plays. And in that first drive, we were able to do so. Obviously, they made some adjustments. I think what made Coppell, so good is they had their interior on both sides of the ball was really, really good. Offensive and defensive lines were exceptional. I think as we started the season talking about a team like Forney, who was really talented, and they were moving up from 5A into 6A. There's just a step in those offensive and defensive lines You know, when you start talking about the best 6A teams in the state of Texas, the line of scrimmage is, you know, definitely a huge factor in playing like that. They made some adjustments. They brought another guy into the box, you know, and they made it difficult on us. And give those guys credit over there. They had a great season. They took North Crowley down to the wire. Like I said, I think North Crowley's ranked 8th in the nation, one of the best teams in the state. And so they had a great football team, but that's what happens this time of year.
Hmm. You get the field goal from Aiden Delgado, 45-yarder to give you a little bit of momentum going in. You're 24-10. You're still in it. You all move it really well. I mean, you know, what you really needed to get some stops, right? And there were a couple mixed in there, but you also were at one point kind of up around midfield, and it got to 4th and 6. And I'm sure, you know, at that point you decided to try to pin them back and see what you could do. Obviously, now you know how the rest of the game played out. Was that a tough decision for you because it was 4th and 6, and as we would find out, you would not have Christian Rhodes, who's obviously emerged as one of the better running backs in the area, maybe even the state. What kind of went into your thought process there?
Yeah, I think coming out of half, you know, you feel you're down. I think it was 24-14 at half. So, you know, we're in a 2-score game. And so, you know, the thought process that right there was our defense had got to stop. We didn't want to give those guys a short field.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to kind of pin them back and see if we could get a stop. And we wanted to keep the game within reach, you know, in that 2-score process. We needed to finish a little bit better offensively. Like I said, they were so good up front. You know, in their defensive line, their linebacker play, they made it difficult for us in the second half.
All right, and yeah, you're right. On that very first possession they had after they'd had some success, y'all sacked Edward Griffin and really and that, by the way, even though he's going to my alma mater, I was rooting against him throughout the game. He's obviously going to be a good one, and you know, and that was one of those games again. Once they kind of get you behind the chains a little bit and put you kind of make you one dimensional to that point. You know, that's an interesting decision you have to make as a coach when you desperately are trying to get back in the game. And I know how you feel. You don't ever give up on a game.
Sure.
How'd Christian look like he was still helmet on, wanting to get back in that game? Was that just something, hey, we just need to protect him from himself a little bit? What was the thought process with the trainers and you and everybody there?
Yeah, you know, he got banged up in week 10, the last regular season game in week 10, and never really got healthy. He had an ankle sprain, and you know those need time, and time wasn't on our side. You know, I thought he did a really good job in the bi-district playoff game against South Grand Prairie. You know, we did limit his carries, and then Friday night, you know, in the Coppell at halftime, you know, they went in and evaluated best they could, and we just felt like it was in his best interest. He wasn't going to be able to go, and so he not having him in the second half was huge for us. You know, we needed that offensive explosiveness, but you know, we didn't have that, and struggled a little bit moving the ball. You know, late in the third and fourth quarter.
All right, and final score 38-10. It's one of those. It's like, you know, a little like Prosper in the sense that Prosper, man, y'all were slugging it away at halftime. Some of their depth, some of their up front. You had said this would be a different test, and again, there's a reason they were undefeated coming in and all of that. Anything, as you did watch the film, as painful as it might have been at times, anybody on either side of the ball you want to single out, any effort, anything that stood out to you when you turned on the tape and were able to look back at this one?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to single out one person. You know, what really starts to kind of play in your mind as you're thinking back. You know, like I said, over the Thanksgiving holiday, is just some of the guys that have come so far. You know, Ron Sherrado, man, when he was in our program as a freshman and sophomore, we thought he was going to be a good player, but I never dreamed he would be, you know, what he was. He's going to have an opportunity to probably go play college football, and you know, at the end of the day, just so proud to just be on the same sideline with him and be involved. in our program, and what he's done. He's grown up so much. He's matured so much. Those guys are the ones you kind of start to think back. The Leland Germanys and the Harrison Days and the Mako Delamis, and there's a bunch of them on here. We had
Mhm.
quite a few seniors. Aiden Webb and Yanni Moore and Mo Kamara. I mean, there's so many. King David and Billups and those guys that, I mean, we've kind of grown up with them. And that's what happens in this business. I met with the freshmen this morning, and just talking to them about, the standard and the legacy and, what it means to put that LH on and, how much work that they're going to have to put in. It just doesn't happen by chance. All these guys that we just alluded to, that I'm looking down at this list right here, they've poured into our program. It's a standard that's been set. We obviously have a lot of work to do, but the program is definitely, going in the right direction. Like I said, and at the end of the day, you've got, 8 teams left, and, there's 3 or
Mhm.
4 of them are some of the best high school football in the country. And, we're proud to be involved in it.
All right. And, again, you mentioned a lot of great ones, but, you know, we've seen Harrison from the time we'd hear about him in junior high and then into ninth grade. And then you kind of had to find a spot for him, right? Because he was just that competitive, whether it was I guess it was his, junior year, he kind of forces his way on the field as a, um, slot halfback. I mean, you're lining him up at a lot of different places. And so, um, I just think when you talk about some of the great leaders that have come through the program, and I think back to Mitch, who had to play early, and boy, y'all asked him to do a lot, and there was a similar sort of toughness level. They didn't, they weren't given the biggest frame in the world, but it just seemed like, and I know Harrison probably took that loss harder than anybody, but in terms of getting you all there, getting you in the right, I don't know if you could have had a better. I mean, when you're a coach like you who've worked with quarterbacks for going on 25 years or whatever it is, and you were one yourself, you can be pretty tough on those guys because you know how it's supposed to be played and you know what you're looking for. And in terms of leadership and moxie and toughness and all, I mean, it's hard for anybody to compare really to what you had over this past season.
Yeah, I've talked about Harrison a lot. I think one of the things that comes to mind is just he's just a winner, and people ask you, well, what does that mean, winner? That just means when things are on the line and things get tough, that guy raises his hand, and, every time, twice on Sunday. And, coming into the season, I know those questions about, who's going to play quarterback for the Wildcats and how are we going to do? And, just him growing up in our program and me watching him when he was a freshman and a sophomore. And then obviously what you alluded to playing as a junior, I knew that mentality that he had, and not everyone has that. He obviously portrayed that in so many different ways. And I knew it was going to be tough to keep him off the field. And so, as we went into spring training and our evaluations and things that go along with that, when you graduate a quarterback like Trip Holly, you start looking down the line, okay, who's going to be next? What are the intangibles that they need to have? What can they do? How are we going to build the offense around them? How are things going to change? How are things going to stay the same? Harrison just had that it factor. It's a special thing. It's a special thing to coach. I'm just lucky to be a part of it.
All right, and lots of and anybody else you want to mention? We always people love our unsung hero award that we give, and a lot of times, sometimes it'll be a support staff / coach. Our man JT, always love that he's out there watching us, and so he's been one of them. I think some team moms were recognized. We've been doing our best to vote for Wendy in that regard. I think I've figured out some algorithms. Voting may have finally closed. But what anybody else you want to recognize? Because it's always fun to me the versatility of your guys. I mean, you watch you watch your man, your long snapper, Mason Check, do that and kind of dedicate it to himself to that position for a couple of years. And then last night I'm out at the Lake Highlands Town Center Christmas tree lighting, and he's the sound tech for a spree. He's over there behind the board doing his thing. So guys like that who don't always get that much acclaim, I think it's kind of fun to recognize them.
Yeah, you're talking about Mason. I think he was kind of at crossroads, maybe his sophomore year in the spring of where do I go, what position am I involved with, and how do I fit in? How do I become a guy that runs out of the tunnel and does something very meaningful on Friday nights? And he started snapping the ball into the QB nets. I think his spring of his sophomore year, and man, just really got a knack for it. It's I don't know how I would compare it. Maybe if you haven't really played much golf and somebody gave you some golf clubs and sent you to the course, it probably wouldn't be pretty. What he does snapping the ball is definitely something that takes hours and hours of practice, and he was really good at it. And became really good at it, and kind of honed his craft and learned how to do that at a high level. I think when you talk about unsung heroes, there's so many, like the Mason Checks of the world. I think for me, just I just want to say again, just hats off to our senior class. I think one of the things that they had to deal with was the graduation of guys like Trip Holly and Deontay Dean. And, that's part of our business. Kids are going to graduate every year, and we hate to see them go. But this group they took on the persona of, I don't know, we don't know. Lake Collins may be a little down. They graduated so many,
Yeah.
and guys, again, guys like Harrison Day and Leland, Germany, and guys like that said, wait just a second, we're going to have something to say about this. And, just super proud of those guys. And again, there's way too many to list here as far as our number of seniors, but just so proud to be a part of their hard work and dedication and what they were able to accomplish this year. And I think going back, as a coach, it's hard when it's fresh, but I think those kids will look back. There's kids that come around our program all the time that graduated from here, and it's fun to get to talk to them and visit with them, and you talk to them maybe on a little different level because you're not directly coaching them anymore, and it's just special to kind of follow them and see what's going on in their lives and how they're doing and the things that go into that. And so I think as these seniors depart, again, we're gonna miss them. But at the same time, I think they're going to look back and have really fond memories of Lake Collins football.
It was man, it was a fun year. And Glenn Gant does a great job on our historical perspective, and he looked at those 30 seniors and talked about they went 27-9 over the past 3 years, 20-3 in district, 2 city championships, 2 district championships, and then two by district championships. And pretty amazing in this back-to-back thing, which hadn't been, with all the storied history that I know as a coach here, you're always reminded of. Coach, did I ever tell you about the one in the mid-90s? But, I mean, that was the first time in many, many years, going back to, I think, 1996. So to back-to-back. So the trajectory is headed up. And then I noticed, I don't know if you have all district stuff available, but because of your dominant season, I believe you'll have the defensive MVP and the offensive newcomer of the year. And honestly, that person should be the MVP in my book, offensive MVP. So if that's not happening, I'll voice I know you probably don't want to, but I would say a lot of our players were honored as y'all got together to go through that.
Yeah, let me talk to the audience a little bit about how that works. So the coaching staff that wins district, or the team that wins district, hosts an all district meeting. It was actually held in this room right here, and coaches get together and they nominate their own players, but they cannot vote for their own players. So you nominate guys, and then your opponents will do the voting. And so it's a great honor. And that information cannot be released until the last team in your district's out of the playoffs. And so, with the Thanksgiving holiday, some of that information has started to leak out. And more and more will come, and probably by the end of the week on Friday, all the district nominations and awards will be listed. But yeah, as you mentioned right now, there's some awards that are called superlative awards, and so they're like MVPs of offense or defense or the district or newcomer or sophomore or things like that. And so that information will start to come out. And as I mentioned a while ago, I couldn't be more proud for Ryan Sherrado, for coaches in our district to stand up and say he's the most valuable player on defense in our district. Is God, it makes me proud. Um, and but there'll be more of those guys and that information to come out in the days to come before the Christmas holiday. So we'll celebrate those guys. We'll get all that out on social media when the time comes for that. We do have a few underclassmen returning, and some of those kids will also be recognized, and it'll be kind of their turn to hold the torch. And to stand up and say this is what we're going to be about. And a lot of work goes between here in spring ball, a lot of off-season stuff we can talk about later. But again, I think today's the day to celebrate the guys that gave us those accolades that you talked about, the back-to-back district championships, back-to-back by-district championships, going undefeated in district. All those things are something we're super proud of, and our trophy case is getting a little larger because of it.
It really is gold ball season. It's always fun. Now with all the other sports going right now, we need to give a shout out. Basketball, especially your boys basketball, is off to a great start. They're 8-1. I think they barely lost on the one loss, which if we might need to talk to that clock keeper wherever they were playing. I think we were a little slow on the finger there. Yeah, that's and by the way, there's another podcast that Brendan and Scott Woodard do a really good job with. Brendan Wright, father of one of your players, and Wright Morris, and I said Brendan Morris, of course. Wright's his son, but Lake Hooplands is their podcast, and that's a good one. And man, they've already got 3 or 4 episodes out. So Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, check that one out too, because man, they're a lot of fun. And Joe, unlike you, Joe knows how to handle up on some social media. I think you're not always getting out there on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, but Joe keeps us all updated and does a great job. And so that'll be fun. Men's and boys and girls basketball, all the other things that are going on. An opportunity for you now to, obviously you're going to have the off-season program and all of that, but also go to a lot of these games, and that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. I think, I was going over the calendar this morning with Miss Volkmer, and I think boys basketball plays here tomorrow night versus Mosquitohorn. They both have big, huge tournaments. The men's and women's programs are going to this Thursday, getting those tournaments kicked off. Men's and women's soccer are having tryouts starting today, and then we'll go throughout most of the week. So some of these fall sports, a little bit later into the Christmas holiday and into the spring are starting to get kicked up, and so that's going to be fun to watch. It's kind of fun for me, to take the coaching hat off a little bit. So to speak, directly involved with everyday practice, and just kind of be able to watch, as you mentioned, like our boys basketball team's 8-1 right now, and kind of watch that group and kind of their journey and what they go through, and district play will be right around the corner for basketball once they get these tournaments concluded, and it'll be fun to watch.
All right, big signing day coming up, the early signing day. We'll get news out, get word out to like the ceremonies and that kind of thing. That was a neat deal the other day, by the way. Elias Dement and several others. Big time diver. I mean, the talent here is amazing. 2 golfers that Landry and Ava and Keanne, I believe, is the diver. But I mean, tremendous talent for that signing ceremony. And then I'm sure we'll have a football signing. You probably have 5 to 10 guys who are going to go on and try to play at the next level. So that'll be coming up here in the next couple of weeks, you believe? Or?
Yeah. So football is a little different. We have 2 signing days in football. We have one early signing day that's right around the corner, and you can choose to sign on those early signing days if you want. we have a couple commits already. Guys like Aiden Webb committed to Oklahoma State. Then we'll have the national signing day, the traditional one will take place in February, and we'll have several more sign on those days. I don't know how. So you're telling me I need to improve my social media game a little bit? Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
'cause
was that kind of overt?
I don't know.
No.
Maybe I'll talk to Duffield and get a few pointers. But
You're fine.
we definitely will have several football athletes that will celebrate as the signing days get closer. I think most of ours will probably happen in February, but we'll be excited to celebrate those athletes.
I lean on your mom to get our podcast out there. She's the one giving me feedback and actually kind of giving me some pointers and all. And she's a great supporter. I've seen her on the field after games. One more shout out to Bob Johnston, Dree, and the boys, and that family, and everybody that's dealing with that loss. As you were talking about Ryan and being the defensive MVP in the district, like I can't help but as we kind of think about Bob, and I can't help but think about like the way he said
pronunciation.
Yeah, it's like Ryan Sharato, and I just always we've been hearing it for years because Ryan makes a lot of plays, but Bob's he was a neat guy and a great community and a football player himself. Played at University of Texas for Darrell Royal in the early 1960s, around 1963. So the man knew what he was talking up there as the eye in the sky. And you're right, that one moment in the game, it was like with all the pomp and circumstance and the fun stuff that was happening on the field when he said, welcome to the boneyard. We would like to welcome you to the boneyard. However, it was just sort of that was it, man. That was football. And that was, as somebody wrote, kind of the soundtrack of our Friday nights. And so we appreciate him. Also appreciate, by the way, everybody, a lot of the Highlandettes parents, the band parents. I am a cheerleader parent. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I've been going to watch, and I guess I can move back up to my seats now. I don't have to be down there on the 10-yard line.
You're going to be a little bit more critical of the Friday night calls now.
Certainly, I'll be able to dig into it a little bit more and give you just immediate feedback, which you love. I've gotten better about like when to send the text, right? Coaches, it's not like right after the game. You just let them, and it's always it's never criticism. It's always support. I think you would agree with that.
I think, one thing that I like to kind of, end on is just, there's so many moving parts to any organization. And when we start with, Leslie Slovak and Kevin Pitts in central admin, and then, you move over here to our building. Miss Jones makes our football staff and our athletes, our football players, and our athletes in general just feel so special. And how she treats those athletes, and we're so appreciative of what she does, and and understands how important this game is to our players, and to our coaches, and our community, and just like to thank her. And then, as you mentioned, cheerleading parents, band parents, Highlandette parents. There's so many more people that have a hand in not just what happens on Friday, but just throughout a football season. And we don't want to take that for granted, and just so appreciative of everything that they do.
All right, yeah, Bell Boys, the whole crew.
Yep,
so, well, I'll miss doing this, but we'll get together and it'll be fun. Do you have a date yet for spring game?
No date for spring game. That I think in the movie Friday Night Lights, when those magnets at the very end, those magnets start to fall off the wall, and those depth charts.
Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of where we are right now in our program. Is we're having to take those magnets and we're having to remove a senior, and now there's a hole there, and so we've got to kind of start to get our off-season program going and start to fill in some of those holes with some of those seniors that are going to be moving on. And we'll start spring ball towards the end of April.
Okay.
And get started from there.
All right. And you are kind of the Billy Bob Thornton around here, since you brought up Friday Night Lights. You may have to give Landman a peek since you have so much downtime now. It is. I'm Matt Mosley, and for Corey Campbell, we've loved doing this on a weekly basis. Thanks to Stephen Holly, was the guy who kind of thought a few years ago we ought to try to do something like this, and so appreciative of him. The Terrio family, the Baggett families, are. Deuce's dad has been a huge supporter of us. Deuce Black, who's been another player who's emerging for you, and that's a good group. So appreciate Mike, appreciate everybody who's a part of this, and we will see you at the Boneyard.
We are Rogue Media Sports.